The sky over Centauri Prime burned orange as another defense satellite exploded. From her office window in the government tower, Ambassador Lyra Mitchell watched the fiery debris fall through the atmosphere. This was the end. After 3 years of fighting, their last defenses were failing. The door to her office slid open. Defense Minister Alan Brooks entered, his uniform wrinkled and his eyes red from lack of sleep. "How bad?" Lyra asked, not turning from the window. "Very bad," Alan replied. He tapped a small device on his wrist. A holographic map of their solar system appeared in the center of the room. Red dots showed the positions of enemy ships. Blue dots showed what remained of the Centauri fleet. There were far too many red dots. "The outer colonies have fallen. We lost contact with New Haven an hour ago." Alan's voice was flat, emotionless. "The enemy will reach our orbit in 6 hours." Lyra finally turned from the window. At 42, she had once been considered young for an ambassador. Now, after 3 years of war, she looked much older. Her dark hair was streaked with gray, and deep lines marked her face. "How many ships do we have left?" 4 cruisers and 11 fighters. Alan closed his eyes briefly. Against their 27 capital ships. Neither of them needed to say what that meant. The Zalarian Empire had arrived 3 years ago with demands for resources and territory. When the peaceful Centauri refused, the Zalarians attacked. System by system, planet by planet, they had conquered everything. Now only the home world remained. "What about the evacuation?" Lyra asked. 37% complete, we need more time." Lyra nodded slowly. "Then we should prepare to surrender." Alan's face showed no surprise, only grim acceptance. "I'll inform the Prime Minister." After he left, Lyra returned to the window. In the distance, she could see the spaceport where thousands of civilians waited to board the few remaining evacuation ships. They had once been a peaceful civilization of explorers and scientists. Now, they would become slaves. The emergency council meeting began an hour later. Prime Minister Nora Wells looked even worse than Alan. Her hands shook slightly as she called the meeting to order. "The military situation is clear," she said. "We cannot win this fight. We must discuss terms of surrender to save as many lives as possible." The room remained silent. Around the large round table sat the 12 remaining council members. 3 chairs were empty, their occupants killed in earlier attacks. "What about our distress calls?" asked Science Minister Don Harper. "Has anyone responded?" "Communications." Chief Greg Simmons shook his head. His right arm was in a sling, injured, during an attack last week. "We've been sending signals to every known spacefaring race for weeks. No one is coming to help us." "Not even the humans?" someone asked. Greg laughed without humor. "Especially not the humans. They signed the Treaty of Proxima decades ago. They don't interfere in galactic affairs anymore." Lyra remembered the humans. She had met their representatives years ago before the war. They had seemed friendly but cautious. After some incident at Proxima Centauri, they had withdrawn from galactic politics, focusing on their own system. Some said they had become pacifists. Others believed they were simply cowards. "Then we have no choice," said Prime Minister Wells. "Ambassador Mitchell, you will lead the surrender delegation. Try to get the best terms possible." As the meeting ended, Lyra stayed behind. She approached Greg Simmons. "Send the distress call one more time," she said quietly. "On all frequencies." Greg looked at her with tired eyes. "It won't make any difference. Please, just one more time." He nodded slowly. "For what it's worth." Night fell over the capital city of New Alexandria. Lyra stood on the balcony of her apartment looking at the stars. Somewhere up there, the Zalarian fleet was approaching. Soon those ships would blot out the stars. Her communication device beeped. It was Alan. "The Zalarians have sent their terms," he said. "They want us in the Grand Plaza tomorrow at noon for the formal surrender." "And the terms?" "Total surrender. All military forces to be disbanded. All resources to be placed under Zalarian control. All citizens to be registered for labor assignment." Slavery. That's what it meant. The Zilarians were known for using conquered populations as workers in their mines and factories. I understand, Lyra said. I'll be ready. After ending the call, she walked through her apartment, touching familiar objects, books, pictures, mementos from her travels. She would probably never see this place again. The Zilarians would take the best housing for themselves. On her desk sat a small statue, a gift from the human ambassador she had met years ago. It showed two hands clasped together, a symbol of friendship between their worlds. How meaningless that seemed now. Outside, the city was eerily quiet. Most people were in their homes, saying goodbye to their normal lives. Some were in the streets, either looting abandoned stores or drinking away their final hours of freedom. A few had chosen a quicker end, jumping from tall buildings or taking poison. Lyra slept little that night. When morning came, she dressed carefully in her formal diplomatic uniform. If this was to be the end of their civilization, they would at least face it with dignity. At the government complex, she met with the other officials who would form the surrender party. No one spoke much. What was there to say? At precisely 11 o'clock, they left the building and walked to the Grand Plaza. Thousands of citizens lined the streets watching in silence as their leaders passed. Some wept openly. Others stood with heads bowed. In the plaza, a large space had been cleared. Armed soldiers, their own people, formed a perimeter. At the center stood a simple table with a document lying on it. The surrender document. The Zilarian ships have entered orbit, Alan informed her, checking his device. Their shuttle will land in 30 minutes. Lyra nodded. She looked around at her world one last time as a free person. The beautiful spires of New Alexandria, the green parks, the blue sky. I wish we could have done more, said Prime Minister Wells, standing beside her. We did everything possible, Lyra replied. But in her heart she wondered if that was true. Could they have prepared better? Fought harder? Found allies? Too late for such thoughts now. The Zilarians were here. The war was lost. Their civilization would become just another conquest for the expanding empire. In the sky above, a small dark spot appeared, growing larger. The Zilarian shuttle coming to accept their surrender. Lyra Mitchell, last ambassador of a free Centauri, straightened her shoulders and prepared to meet her people's new masters. They had given up all hope. Admiral Frank Carter stood at the viewport of his flagship, the EFS Valiant. The ship floated in silent darkness at the edge of Earth's solar system. Frank was a tall man with short gray hair and a face marked by years of service. His blue uniform was simple but carried many medals and honors. Play it again, he said to his second-in-command, Olivia Reed. Olivia nodded and pressed a button on her tablet. A hologram appeared in the center of the bridge. It showed a woman with tired eyes and a formal uniform. Ambassador Lyra Mitchell of Centauri Prime. This is our final distress call, said the hologram. The Zilarian Empire has destroyed our outer colonies. They will reach our home world within hours. We have no defenses left. If anyone can hear this, please help us. We are a peaceful people. We cannot fight them alone. The message ended. The bridge was silent except for the soft beeping of computers. That message was sent 12 hours ago, said Olivia. We're too late. Frank shook his head. Maybe not. How fast can the fleet reach Centauri? Olivia looked surprised. Sir, the Treaty of Proxima forbids us from— I know what the treaty says. Frank cut her off. How fast? She checked her tablet. If we use the new jump drives at full power, we could be there in under 6 hours. Frank nodded. Prepare the fleet. All ships at combat readiness. Sir, Olivia said carefully, I must remind you that we need presidential approval to leave our system. Then get it. Frank turned back to the viewport. Tell the president exactly what we've seen. Tell him what's happening to the Centauri. Olivia left the bridge. Frank remained at the viewport, thinking. For 30 years, humanity had stayed within its own solar system. After the disaster at Proxima Centauri, Earth had signed a treaty promising not to interfere in galactic affairs. In return, the other races promised to leave humans alone, but Frank had never liked that treaty. Humans were explorers by nature. Staying in one system felt like a prison, and the Zellarians, they were the real reason the treaty was a mistake. While humanity had hidden, the Zellarians had grown stronger. They had conquered 12 systems in the past decade alone. Olivia returned an hour later. Her face was serious. "Well?" Frank asked. "The president is calling an emergency meeting," she said. "All military leaders and government officials. They want you to join by video." Frank nodded. In his office, he activated the secure communication system. On his screen appeared the faces of Earth's leaders. In the center was President William Downs, a man with dark skin and a serious expression. "Admiral Carter," said the president, "I understand you've received a distress call from Centauri Prime." "Yes, Mr. President. The Zellarians are about to conquer the whole system. The Centauri have no chance without help." "The Treaty of Proxima is clear," said Defense Secretary Joe Lewis, an older man with white hair. "We cannot interfere in conflicts outside our system." "With respect," Frank replied, "that treaty was a mistake. We signed it after the Proxima disaster because we were afraid, because we blamed ourselves for what happened there. But all we've done is allow bullies like the Zellarians to grow stronger. If we break the treaty," said another official, "we risk war with multiple alien powers." Frank leaned closer to the camera. "We've been building our fleet for 30 years. We have technology they haven't seen, weapons they can't imagine. And while we've been building, the Zellarians have been conquering peaceful worlds that can't fight back." The president was silent, thinking. Finally, he spoke. "Admiral, if we were to intervene, what would your plan be?" "Operation Thunderbolt, sir. We've been preparing it for years. 5 battle fleets, full deployment. We jump to Centauri, destroy the Zellarian forces, and establish a defensive perimeter." "And after that?" asked the president. "After that," Frank said, "we send a message to the entire galaxy. Earth is back, and we don't tolerate bullies." President Downs looked at each face on his screen. One by one, the officials nodded. "Very well, Admiral," said the president. "You have authorization to execute Operation Thunderbolt. Save the Centauri." "Yes, sir." Frank ended the call. He walked quickly back to the bridge. Olivia was waiting. "Orders, sir?" she asked. "Alert all ships. Operation Thunderbolt is a go. We jump in 2 hours." The bridge erupted in activity. Officers rushed to their stations. Communications officers sent encrypted messages to other ships in the fleet. Engineers prepared the jump drives. Frank returned to the viewport. Across the darkness of space, he could see the other ships of his fleet. Massive warships with powerful weapons. For 30 years, humanity had built in secret. Their ships didn't look like the sleek, artistic vessels of other races. Human ships were practical, powerful, and deadly. "Sir," said Olivia, coming to stand beside him. "The fleet reports ready for jump. All weapon systems at full power, shields at maximum." "Good." Frank turned to face his crew. "This is what we've trained for. This is why we built this fleet, not to conquer, not to rule, but to defend those who cannot defend themselves." He pressed a button on his command chair. His voice would now reach every ship in the fleet. "Attention. All ships, this is Admiral Carter. Today we return to the stars not as conquerors, but as defenders. The Centauri are a peaceful people facing extinction. We will not let that happen." He paused, looking at the determined faces of his crew. "For too long we have watched from a distance as the Zellarians built their empire on the suffering of others. Today, that ends. Today, humanity returns to the galaxy, and we are bringing the full force of Earth with us." Around him, officers stood straighter, eyes bright with purpose. "Prepare for jump. All ships, battle stations, we are going to show the Zellarians exactly what happens when they push humanity too far." Across the fleet, alarms sounded as ships prepared for combat. Weapon systems came online. Shields powered up to full strength. Soldiers checked their equipment. On the Valiant's bridge, Frank returned to his command chair. "All ships report ready." "For jump, Admiral," said Olivia. Frank nodded. Execute jump. Take us to Centauri Prime. Space itself seemed to bend around the human fleet. Stars blurred into streaks of light. In a flash of energy, Earth's war fleet vanished from the solar system, heading toward a battle that would change the galaxy forever. On distant Centauri Prime, the surrender ceremony was about to begin. The people had given up all hope. They had no idea what was coming. The Grand Plaza of New Alexandria was silent. Thousands of Centauri citizens stood in rows, watching as their leaders prepared to surrender. Ambassador Lyra Mitchell stood with Prime Minister Wells and the other officials. They wore their formal clothes for the last time. In the center of the plaza, a large Xelarian shuttle had landed. It was black and spiky, like an insect. The door opened slowly. Out stepped Commander Kruvax, leader of the Xelarian invasion force. He was tall and thin with 4 arms and hard, shiny skin that looked like armor. 6 soldiers followed him, each carrying weapons. "Greetings, people of Centauri," said Kruvax through a translator device. His real voice was a series of clicks and hisses. "Today you join the great Xelarian Empire. Your resources will serve us, your people will work for us. Resistance is not possible." Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was steady despite her fear. "We are here to discuss the terms of our surrender." Kruvax made a sound that might have been laughter. "There are no terms to discuss. You surrender completely, or we destroy your cities from orbit." Prime Minister Wells spoke next. "We ask only that you spare our civilians. They are not soldiers. They cannot harm you." "All will serve the Empire," Kruvax replied coldly. "Now sign the document." He pointed to a tablet one of his soldiers held. On it was the surrender agreement, written in both Xelarian and Centauri languages. Lyra took the tablet and read it quickly. It was worse than she had expected. Complete. Surrender. No rights for Centauri citizens. No protections for their culture or history. She looked at Prime Minister Wells, who nodded sadly. They had no choice. Lyra was about to sign when a Xelarian officer ran from the shuttle. He spoke urgently to Kruvax in their language. The commander's 4 eyes widened. High above the planet, in the blackness of space, the first signs of trouble appeared on Xelarian ship sensors. Multiple energy spikes at the edge of the system. Space itself seemed to tear open as massive objects began to emerge. On the largest Xelarian warship, Admiral Zexkar watched his display screen with growing alarm. One by one, huge ships appeared, then dozens, then hundreds. They were like nothing he had seen before. Dark angular vessels with weapons pointing in all directions. "What are those ships?" he demanded. His science officer worked frantically at his station. "Unknown design. Energy readings are off our scales. They're not in our database." "Open a channel," ordered Zexkar. "All frequencies." Before they could act, every communication device in the Xelarian fleet activated with the same message. "This is Admiral Frank Carter of the Earth Defense Force. Centauri Prime is now under the protection of humanity. You have 1 hour to withdraw from this system completely. Earth, humans." Zexkar had heard of them, but they had been hidden in their own system for decades. Why would they intervene now? Ignore them, he decided. Prepare to attack. Back on the planet's surface, all communication devices suddenly played the same message. The voice of Admiral Carter echoed across the Grand Plaza. The Centauri citizens looked up at the sky in confusion and growing hope. "What trickery is this?" demanded Kruvax, his 4 arms gesturing angrily. "Not trickery," Lyra replied, barely able to believe it herself. "The humans have come." "Impossible," hissed Kruvax. "They have hidden in their system for 30 years. They are cowards." "Perhaps," said Lyra, standing taller now. "You have mistaken patience for cowardice." Kruvax activated his own communication device. He received reports from his fleet in space. The human ships were moving into position around the planet. Their weapons were unlike anything the Xelarians had encountered. "We will crush these humans," Kruvax declared. "Our empire has conquered 12 systems. We will not be stopped by a species that hides from the galaxy." In space, the human fleet had formed a protective sphere around Centauri Prime. On the bridge of the EFS Valiant, Admiral Carter watched as the Zalarian ships began to move. "They're forming attack positions," reported Olivia. "Looks like they're not taking our warning seriously." Frank was not surprised. The Zalarians only understand force. Let's show them what 30 years of human technological development looks like. He pressed a button on his chair. "All ships, this is Admiral Carter. The enemy has chosen to fight. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. Protect the Centauri at all costs." The first Zalarian ships fired their weapons. Bright energy. Beams shot toward the human fleet. They hit the shields of the human vessels and splashed harmlessly away. "No damage to any ships," reported a tactical officer. "Their weapons can't penetrate our shields." Frank nodded. "Return fire. Target their weapon systems only. Let's show them we mean business," the human ships fired. Unlike the bright beams of the Zalarians, human weapons were almost invisible. They struck with pinpoint accuracy, disabling the weapons on several Zalarian ships without destroying them. "Send the message again," ordered Frank. 1 hour to withdraw. On the planet, Kruvax received reports of the first exchange of fire. His confidence began to waver. The humans had technology far beyond what intelligence had suggested. Their ships had shields that could block Zalarian weapons, and their own weapons were terrifyingly precise. "Return to the ship," he ordered his soldiers. "We must coordinate with the fleet." As the Zalarians hurried back to their shuttle, the Centauri citizens began to whisper among themselves. Could it be true? Had help really arrived? Lyra watched. The Zalarian shuttle lift off. In the sky above, flashes of light could be seen even in daylight, the signs of battle in orbit. "What's happening?" asked Prime Minister Wells, her voice shaking with new hope. "I don't know," replied Lyra. "But the humans are fighting for us." Greg Simmons, the communications chief, was frantically working on his device. "I'm trying to establish contact with the human fleet." Suddenly, his device beeped. "I have something. It's a human communication channel." A small hologram appeared above his device. It showed a woman in a uniform. "This is Commander Olivia Reed of the Earth Defense Force. We are currently engaging Zalarian forces in orbit. Please remain calm. We will send troops to secure your government buildings shortly." The Centauri officials looked at each other in amazement. After years of fighting and losing, after preparing to surrender, help had arrived at the last possible moment. In orbit, the battle continued. The Zalarians, realizing their weapons were ineffective, tried new tactics. They sent smaller, faster ships to dart between the human vessels. But the human fleet moved with surprising coordination, never allowing the enemy to find a weakness. "Admiral," said Olivia, "Zalarian reinforcements are jumping in from the outer system." Frank studied the tactical display. "Redirect battle groups, 2 and 3 to intercept deploy fighters." From the larger human ships, smaller vessels launched. They were fast and agile, each carrying weapons that could disable a Zalarian ship. The battle in space grew larger. The Centauri watched from the surface, their fear turning to hope as they realized the truth. The humans were winning. The tide was turning. After years of defeat, after giving up all hope, the Centauri suddenly had reason to believe again. In the darkness of space, humanity's war fleet fought to protect a civilization they barely knew. And the galaxy was about to learn an important lesson. Never mistake humanity's absence for weakness. The battle for Centauri Prime raged in orbit. Human ships moved with perfect coordination, their weapons striking with deadly accuracy. The Zalarian fleet, once so confident, now struggled to respond. On the bridge of the EFS Valiant, Admiral Frank Carter watched the tactical display with calm focus. "Battle Group 2 reports all targets neutralized," said Olivia. "Battle Group 3 has engaged the reinforcements." Frank nodded. "Casualties?" 3 fighter craft damaged, no ships lost, minimal injuries. It was going better than expected. The Zalarians relied on overwhelming force against weaker enemies. They weren't prepared for an opponent with superior technology. "Sir," said the communications officer, "we've established contact with the Centauri government. They're requesting to speak with you. Put them through, ordered Frank. A hologram appeared on the bridge. It showed a woman with tired eyes but a hopeful expression. Ambassador Lyra Mitchell. This is Admiral Carter, Frank said. Are you safe, Ambassador? Lyra looked stunned to be speaking directly with the human commander. Yes, Admiral. The Zalarians have returned to orbit, but we fear they may start bombing our cities in revenge. That won't happen, Frank assured her. We've disabled their bombardment weapons, but we need to secure your government buildings. I'm sending down a team. While the space battle continued, a human transport ship descended through the atmosphere. It landed in the Grand Plaza where, just an hour before, the surrender ceremony had been prepared. From the ship emerged 20 soldiers in advanced combat armor. Their leader was Major Samantha Kelly, a tall woman with short brown hair and determined eyes. The armor made her look twice her normal size. The Centauri citizens watched in amazement. They had never seen anything like these human soldiers. Their own military had simple uniforms and basic weapons. These humans looked like walking tanks. Samantha approached the Centauri officials who waited nervously. Her helmet retracted, revealing her face. Major Samantha Kelly, Earth Defense Force, she said. We're here to secure your safety. Lyra stepped forward. Thank you, Major. We weren't expecting any of this. Samantha smiled briefly. We've been monitoring the Zalarian expansion for years. We knew they would eventually become a threat to everyone. But the Treaty of Proxima, said Prime Minister Wells. We thought humans had withdrawn from galactic affairs. We never left, Samantha replied. We just stepped back to prepare. Now we need to get you to safety. The Zalarians won't surrender easily. As if confirming her words, explosions shook the ground. Everyone looked up. Several Zalarian ships had broken through the human blockade and were entering the atmosphere. They're heading for the cities, shouted Greg Simmons, checking his device. Not for long, said Samantha calmly. She pressed a button on her arm. Kelly to Valiant. We have hostiles entering atmosphere. Request fighter support. Almost immediately, human fighter craft streaked across the sky. They were smaller than the Zalarian ships, but much faster. They intercepted the enemy vessels before they could reach the cities. This way, Samantha directed the Centauri officials. We need to move you to a secure location. As they hurried toward the government building, Lyra walked beside Samantha. Why did you come? She asked. After 30 years of isolation, why help us now? Samantha's face became serious. Because it was the right thing to do. Humans don't abandon others to bullies. Inside the government building, the humans set up a command center. Screens showed the battle in space and defensive positions around the city. The Zalarian commander has landed troops in the Eastern District, reported one of Samantha's soldiers. They're taking civilians hostage. Samantha's expression hardened. They're using civilians as shields. Typical Zalarian tactics. She turned to her team. Alpha Squad with me. We're going to free those hostages. Lyra stepped forward. I'm coming with you. The people will trust you more if I'm there. Samantha hesitated, then nodded. Stay behind us, at all times. In the Eastern District, Zalarian soldiers had rounded up several hundred Centauri citizens in a large public building. Commander Kruvak stood on a balcony, watching his troops place explosive devices around the area. Send the message to the humans, he ordered. If they don't withdraw from orbit, we kill all the hostages. Before his officer could send the message, the windows shattered. Human soldiers in powered armor burst into the building from all sides. Their weapons fired with precision, stunning Zalarian soldiers without harming civilians. Kruvax fired his own weapon at the nearest human. The energy blast hit the soldier's armor and dissipated harmlessly. The human turned, aimed, and fired. Kruvax fell, stunned, but alive. It took less than 5 minutes. All Zalarian soldiers were captured. The civilians were safe. Outside, Lyra spoke to her people, assuring them that help had arrived. The Centauri citizens looked at the human soldiers with awe and gratitude. In orbit, the battle was reaching its conclusion. The Zalarian ships, outmatched and outgunned, began to retreat. Some jumped to hyperspace, fleeing the system. Others surrendered, powering down their weapons. On the Valiant, Frank received the reports with satisfaction. All hostages rescued, Zalarian ground forces captured, enemy fleet in retreat. Olivia smiled, a rare show of emotion. It worked, sir. Operation Thunderbolt was a complete success. The battle is won, Frank agreed. But this is just the beginning. He knew the Zalarians would return with a larger force. They had built their empire through conquest and wouldn't abandon it easily. But next time, they would face not just humans but a prepared Centauri defense. As night fell on Centauri Prime, the citizens emerged from their homes. They gathered in the streets, looking up at the stars. Instead of Zalarian warships, they saw human vessels protecting them. In the Grand Plaza, now serving as a landing zone for human ships bringing supplies and medical teams, Lyra stood with Samantha. More human ships were landing, bringing engineers, doctors, and security teams. "What happens now?" Lyra asked. "Now we rebuild," Samantha replied. "We help you strengthen your defenses, we teach you to fight, and we form an alliance that will make the Zalarians think twice before attacking anyone again." For the first time in years, Lyra felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Not just for survival, but for a future. Across the city, Centauri citizens cheered as human soldiers walked among them. Children stared in wonder at their advanced technology. Adults offered food and drinks to their saviors. The people who had given up all hope now celebrated their liberation. And high above, humanity's war fleet stood guard, a shield against the darkness. 3 days passed since the battle for Centauri Prime. The human fleet remained in orbit, protecting the planet. On the surface, human engineers helped repair damage from the fighting. Medical teams treated the injured. Security forces kept watch for any remaining Zalarian soldiers. In the government tower, a meeting began in the large council chamber. The room had been repaired, though burn marks still showed on some walls. Around the table sat the Centauri, leadership, and the human commanders. Admiral Frank Carter had come down from his ship for this important meeting. He sat beside Lyra Mitchell, looking at the faces around the table. After so many years in space, being on a planet felt strange to him. President William Downs had also arrived from Earth. His ship had jumped in that morning. The president was a tall man with dark skin and a serious expression. Now he stood to address the room. "People of Centauri," he began, "I come with a message from Earth. Your fight is now our fight. Your safety is our concern. We offer not just protection, but partnership." Prime Minister Wells looked overwhelmed. "We are grateful, Mr. President, but we must ask, why now? Why, after 30 years of isolation, did humans decide to return to galactic affairs?" President Downs nodded at the question. "The Treaty of Proxima was never meant to be permanent. It was a pause, a time for us to reflect and prepare. While we stayed in our system, we watched the galaxy. We saw the Zalarians conquering peaceful worlds. We knew eventually they would become too dangerous to ignore." "So you were preparing for war all this time?" asked Lyra. "We were preparing to defend," Frank corrected. "Humans have a saying. If you want peace, prepare for war." We built our fleet, not to conquer, but to protect. On a large screen on the wall, images appeared showing the damage across Centauri Prime. Cities had been bombed, farms burned, millions of people were homeless. "The Zalarians did this to 12 worlds before yours," said President Downs. "They will do it to more if they aren't stopped." "But they will return," said Defense Minister Alan Brooks. "Their empire is vast. This was just one fleet." Frank nodded. "Yes, they will return, but next time you won't face them alone." The president pressed a button on the table. The screen changed to show a different image, a document with both human and Centauri writing. "This is the treaty of Earth and Centauri," he explained. "An alliance between our worlds. We will help you rebuild. We will train your military. We will share technology to help you defend yourselves." The Centauri officials looked at each other in amazement. Just days ago, they had prepared to surrender their world. Now they were being offered an alliance with the mysterious humans. "There is more," continued the president. "We have sent messages to other worlds threatened by the Zolarians. Many have already responded, eager to join our alliance." Lyra could hardly believe what she was hearing. "You mean to create a coalition against the Zolarian Empire?" "We mean to create a shield," Frank replied. "Not just for Earth or Centauri, but for all peaceful worlds." While the leaders talked, life was slowly returning to normal in the city below. In a hospital built by human engineers, Samantha Kelly visited injured Centauri citizens. Children followed her, fascinated by her armor and her stories of Earth. In orbit, human and Centauri ships worked together to clear debris from the battle. Centauri engineers studied human technology, amazed by its advancement. Human teachers showed Centauri soldiers how to use new weapons and defense systems. Back in the council chamber, the treaty was signed. As Prime Minister Wells pressed her thumb to the document, cheers erupted from those watching. "This is a historic day," said the president, "the beginning of a new era for both our peoples." After the ceremony, Lyra walked with Frank to the balcony overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. "You know the Zolarians won't accept this defeat," she said. "Their leader, Emperor Vexcal, rules 100 worlds. He will send more ships, more soldiers." Frank nodded. "We're counting on it." Lyra looked at him in surprise. "You want them to attack again?" "What happened here was more than a rescue," Frank explained. "It was a message. For decades, the galaxy thought humans were hiding in fear. Now they know the truth. We weren't hiding. We were preparing." He pointed to the sky where the first stars were becoming visible. "Right now, across the galaxy, other worlds are watching what happened here. The Zolarians thought they could take your world like they took so many others. Instead, they were defeated in a single day. That sends a powerful message. A warning." Lyra understood. "Exactly. And not just to the Zolarians. There are other empires out there, other races who think conquest is their right. They need to understand that humanity will not stand by while peaceful worlds suffer." As darkness fell, lights came on across the city. For the first time in years, the people of Centauri Prime slept without fear. Human ships patrolled the skies. Human soldiers stood guard at key locations. That night, a message arrived from a nearby star system. The people there had also suffered Zolarian attacks. They had heard about what happened at Centauri. They asked to join the alliance. In the morning, more messages came from other worlds. Some had already been conquered by the Zolarians. Others feared they would be next. All had heard about the humans and their victory at Centauri Prime. At the spaceport, human ships arrived bringing supplies and equipment. Engineers began building defense systems that could protect the planet even when the human fleet departed. Centauri scientists worked alongside human experts, learning about the new technology. Centauri soldiers trained with human weapons. After years of losing, they were eager to learn how to win. 1 week after the battle, Admiral Frank Carter prepared to return to his ship. The initial crisis was over. The real work of building the alliance was just beginning. Before he left, he met again with Lyra in the plaza, where the surrender ceremony had been planned. "We received intelligence this morning," he told her. "The Zolarian Emperor has called his fleets home to prepare a response. They will come in force next time." "And we will be ready," Lyra replied with confidence. "Thanks to Earth, we have hope again." Frank smiled. "Hope is just the beginning. Together we will build something the galaxy hasn't seen before. A coalition of free worlds standing together against those who would conquer them." He looked up at the sky where his ship waited. The galaxy is about to learn an important lesson. Humanity's patience should never be mistaken for weakness, or our kindness for vulnerability. The people who had given up all hope now looked to the future with confidence. And in the stars above, humanity's war fleet stood ready to defend not just one world, but all who would stand with them against the darkness.